there watching the time just ticking. Clock runs around, days in and out, can't really call it living. Somewhere I let light go dark, but here's where my new story starts. Take my life.
Hello, welcome to Heart of the Tribe. My name is Chelle Wagner, and I'm so glad that you came to join me today. Boy, I hope you have been having a blessed week of unleavened bread. What a special time of year this is. Spring has sprung, everything's sprouting up from the ground, and for those gardening and doing different things, I know my garden is full of all kinds of herbs, and I've got some vegetables started, and it's just nice to see the trees, flowering and turning green. It's a wonderful time of year, the newness of life. And so I kind of want to share some things about where we're at on the calendar of Yahweh today. And so I'm going to just start right in with some information here to share with you. So we've just had Passover, and what I do to look at where we're at with the feast and Yah's calendar is my first go-to is always Leviticus 23. I love to look into the word and see what Yah is telling us. So you can see in Leviticus 23:4, he starts talking to us about the Passover. And so he says, these are the feast of Yahweh, even the holy assemblies, which you shall proclaim in their appointed times. In the 14th day of the month at even is Yahuwah's Pesach. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of Matzah. Okay, so 7 days you must eat matzah. So we're kind of coming to the end of that. In the first day, you shall have a holy assembly. You shall do no servile work, but you shall make an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. All right. And so, there's a lot of things we do very differently today as we are not in the land and we are trying to get our hearts in line with what his word says. It's not that we can do it perfectly the way that it was done because we're scattered out into the nations. So he is looking for hearts that consider his special times a privilege and not a burden. He made these special times for us, and it's really important that we get to that point to where we know they're a privilege, they're not a burden. So then in here it talks about the Feast of First Fruits, and here's the part that I want to get down to is Leviticus 23:15. So what happens is there's something called the counting of the Omer, and it's this 50-day count that starts with first fruits. And then we begin counting, right, to get to our next appointed time, our next Moedim, which is Shavuot. And so here's what it says in Leviticus 23:15, and you shall count unto you from the morrow after the Shabbat, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Shabbats shall be complete. Even unto the morrow after the 7th Shabbat, you shall number 50 days. This is why Shavuot always ends up falling on a Sunday, because it's always, you count the Shabbats and you do to 49, right? 49 days. And then the next day is always a Sunday because Shabbat is on Saturday. And so then we have our Shavuot celebration. Okay, so what I'm zeroing in on is this count, because we're in the time of counting. So what does it mean? Well, if you try to Google this, you're going to get a lot of different interpretations, a lot of sometimes very religious interpretations. But when I search the scriptures, I don't see anything except count. Right? And so I even looked into the word, see if there's any kind of special meaning there. Nope. It means count. It means count. And so that's what we're doing. We're counting. And so if Yah has told me to count something, why would that be? It would be in anticipation of an event that's to come. Hi, Tammy. Hi, guys. Glad you guys are all here. Hi, Laura Lee. Good to see everybody. Hey, Chris. Hi, Carrie and Gabriella. Good to see all of you guys. So we're counting, right? So if I'm counting something, it's because I anticipate that I'm looking forward to something that's going to be happening when this count is done, when I've made it to the end of the count. So what is it that we're looking for? This is what I want to begin to explore today. It was funny, on this channel, what I did was, uh, leading up to Passover, everything was, let's prepare for Passover. So now I prayed, and what Yah gave me was, let's prepare for Shavuot. So he's given me something, a weekly series that's going to take us from now until we get to Shavuot to share on this particular show. So here's where I'm going to start. What I just want to give you this background because I'm trying to get to this one. And here's how we're going to count. We're going to examine out of Isaiah 11:2, the Ruach, the 7 Ruachs, right? That he has given to us. But I have to back up just a tad because we need context. We need to know how this applies to our life today. How do we apply, is Isaiah 11 for us right now? And I think that we have positive proof that it is. When we look at Isaiah 10, what do we find? Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed, to turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless. And what will you do in the day of visitation, and in the desolation which shall come from far? Okay, so what's this talking about? This is talking about a nation that is decreeing unrighteous decrees. They're persecuting widows and orphans and the needy, and they're taking advantage of their citizens. Okay, the ones who are instituting these unrighteous decrees. Are we living that today? I mean, absolutely. If you're breathing, you know that we are living that today. Okay, so it also then gives a reference to the day of visitation. What did Yahushua say when he left? He had the Pesach with his disciples, and he says, I will not drink of this again until they cry, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, come, blessed be the name of Yahusha, come and be with us, until they cry out for him to return. Okay, so we know that we're waiting on his return. What is that? A day of visitation, right? So, and what will you do in the day of visitation, in the day of desolation, which shall come from far? Because judgment comes at this final return. Okay. Without me, they shall bow down. Okay, well, let me go back. Which will come from far. To whom will you flee for help? And where will you leave your glory? Without me, they shall bow down under the prisoners, and they shall fall under the slain. For all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. This is the hand of Yah that we see coming for vengeance. He describes himself as Yahuwah Zavaot, Yahuwah of the vast army host of angels that are going to come with him. Okay, so why is he doing this? This is on a judgment on arrogant Assyria. Who is Assyria except who captured the northern tribes, the house of Ephraim, the northern kingdom that split. So this is who Assyria is. Where did they end up? You see it really alive and well in the nation of America, because you see that we are a melting pot. But, this is judgment on the nations, and it's really, we're scattered out everywhere. We're scattered in all the nations at this point. Okay. So here we see in Isaiah 10, O Ashur, the rod of my anger and the staff in their hand is my indignation. What's he saying? He has used this vast, mighty nation to put punishment on his people. Why? Because they did not have a heart to follow his ways. They considered his keeping his Shabbat and keeping his feast a burden, something troublesome. Ugh, don't put us under the law, right? That, that's what it's saying right here. Okay. So what does he use? He uses wicked nations that have no mercy to bring them back into a line. Why? Because he whom Yahuwah loves, he chastens. Why? So that we will not be separated him for all of eternity. Okay. I will send against him a hypocritical nation and against the people of my wrath, and I will give him a charge to take the spoil and to take the prey and to tread them down like the mire of the streets. Howbeit he means not so, neither does his heart think so, but it is in his heart to destroy and cut off nations, not a few, the righteous reign of the branch. This is Yahusha. And I know that a lot of people that have grown up in the church system have been taught, Jesus is all love. Jesus is all love. Well, he's a lot more than that. He is love, but he is love on a level that we can't possibly even begin to truly wrap our minds around. Just like understanding, he whom Yah loves, he chastens, right? Because he doesn't desire that any of us should perish. And he's going to give us every last chance to repent from our wicked ways and to come out of Babylon and come out of that system. All right, so let's go on down. What does he say here? And it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Yasharel and such as are escaped of the house of Yaakov shall no more again stay upon him that smote them, but shall stay upon Yahweh, the Holy One of Yasharel, in truth. What is he saying? He's saying, when they begin to experience this indignation that I'm pouring out upon the nations, it's going to get those who have a heart to follow me, it's going to get their attention, and they are going to turn from the way that they have done things. They are going to get away from the idols of Babylon, and they are going to have a heart made of flesh that wants nothing more than to do my will. They're going to be willing to follow me. All right, in truth. And this is going to be a remnant. Why does he say? Because not everybody's going to survive. The remnant shall return, even the remnant of Yaakov, unto El Gibor. All right. Who is that? That's the mighty El, the mighty El. For though your people, Yasharel, be as the sand of the sea, yet a remnant of them shall return. Not everybody's going to make it through this. The consumption decreed shall overflow with righteousness. And for Adonai Yahuwah Zavaot, this is the captain of the army of the host of angel armies, shall make a consumption even determined in the midst of the land. Okay, so then what comes next? Here we're told in Isaiah 11:1. So this chapter follows. So we're looking for context. And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Yeshai, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. Who is that branch? Mashiach is that branch. And the Ruach Yahuwah shall rest upon him. The Ruach Hokmah and Bina, the Ruach Etzah and Gevurah, the Ruach Da'ath, and the Yirah of Yahweh. Don't worry about the Hebrew names. I'm about to give you their English interpretation, okay, and show you where they fit on the menorah. All right. And shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of Yahweh. And he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears. But with righteousness shall he judge the poor and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth. What comes out of our mouth? Our words, our breath, right? What we're thinking ends up coming out. Okay, what's in our heart ends up coming out. And with the breath of his lips, he shall slay the wicked. All right. And righteousness shall be the belt of his loins, and faithfulness the belt of his reins. Now, the reason I'm reading all of you this is I want to put this whole thing in context, because we see the judgment coming on the nations. We see the Ruach being poured out upon his people. Okay. And then we see what's coming next. the millennium, the millennial reign, starting right here. And righteousness shall be the belt of his loins, and faithfulness the belt of his reins. The wolf shall lay down with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf with the young lion, and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. And the cow and the bear shall feed. The young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. And the suckling child shall play on the hole of the asp, of the snake, right? And the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice den. So what are we seeing there? We're still dealing with snakes and chimeras, which are, produced in a lab. They're not born naturally. The cockatrice is like it's got a snake with a rooster comb and, different feet. I can't remember, every piece of it, but it's not natural. It's a chimera. All right. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of Yahweh as the waters cover the sea. And in that day there shall be a root of Yeshai, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the other nations seek, and his rest shall be glorious. And it shall come to pass in that day that Adonai shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Ashur, from Mitzrayim, from Pathrock, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and Hanath, and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign. What is that? That's a banner. It's a flag, right? He shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcast of Yasharel, and gather together the dispersed of Yahudah from the four corners of the earth. I love this verse. It's one of my favorites because I'm looking for it to happen. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Yahudah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Yahudah, and Yahudah shall not vex Ephraim. This is Judah and Ephraim, the southern tribe, the northern tribe. This is the house of Yasharel being able to come back together again. Not just the Jews, not just Ephraim, but all 12 tribes. All right. All 12 tribes. They come back together. But they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Pelishtim towards the west, and they shall spoil them of the east together. It means when they come together, they're going to be a powerful force to defeat the enemies of Yah and the enemies of Yah's people. They shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them. And Yahweh shall utterly destroy the tongue of the Mitzrayim sea, and with his mighty wind shall he shake his hand over the river, and shall smite it in the seven streams. Very, very interesting. And make men go over dry shod. And there shall be a highway for the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Ashur, like it was to Yasharel in the day that he came up out of the land of Mitzrayim. All right. So what do we see here? We've got a glimpse of heaven. This is our hope. This is what keeps us going. This is what helps us to endure when things that are going on around us would try to make us despondent or try to drag us into despair. For we are not of this world, right? This is not our home. We have a home, and this is not it. But we are to endure until he returns. That's our job, and be a testimony unto the truth. All right. So by the word of Yahweh, the heavens were made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. So here's what I wanted to show you guys here. This is, I found this picture. I didn't create this one. I did find this one on the internet, but it's the seven ruachs, okay, of Yahweh. And here we've got a beautiful presentation. So what does ruach mean? I've shared that I went on a beach trip last October with some friends of mine, and my friend Karen gave us these beautiful books. And let me just remove this for 1 second. Hold on. I'm trying to navigate my mouse. I wanted to show you guys this. There we go. All right. So she had given us all these beautiful, beautiful notebooks. And so while I was there, I started, meditating on this about the breath, the ruach, the breath, right? And I knew that Yah was going to have me end up sharing about this. I just didn't know when it was going to be. And apparently it's it's now, here it is for Yahweh. I am he who breathes life. Behold the hand, behold the nailed hand, right? Right there in his name. Okay. Beautiful. So this kind of inspired me, and I knew that I was going to end up sharing this with you guys. So I'm going to go back and add what I wanted to show you. So here I've lined this up with the feast. So if we've got the breath of life, this is the first one that's given, right? And what did we just get? What is Passover all about? What did the death of Mashiach on the stake accomplish for us, except he was our Passover lamb? He is the one who causes death to pass over us, because we are now underneath, by covenant, underneath the shadow of his wing. The next one we get, the Ruach of Chokmah, wisdom, unleavened bread. So we've made a week to say, to ask Yah to examine our hearts, examine our life, right? And see, what is it within our life that's not pleasing? What is it that's leavening in us? What's causing us to puff up in our own wisdom, right? Because that's our nature. That's what we do as humans. We get a hold of a little truth and we think we're all that in a bag of chips, right? And we go running for it, and Yah has to right size us over and over. And so unleavened bread is a wonderful time to understand that we don't need our own wisdom. We need his wisdom, right? And then here we've got the Ruach Binah, understanding, first fruits. Well, what does that help us to understand? He was the first one risen from the grave, the one who defeated death, hell, and the grave on our behalf. This is understanding. This is the good news that we're supposed to be sharing with others. This is the good news. He defeated it. We are no longer a defeated people. We have hope because of him, right? We have hope of eternal life. We know that this flesh is not the end of us. It's when this flesh is done, all I want to hear is, well done, good and faithful servant, and enter into his kingdom for the rest of what he has for me, right? Because it's going to be glorious. And I'm looking forward to that. And it takes away, when you get this understanding, right? When you have this understanding, fear loses its grip on you, because it doesn't matter what people have to say about you. It doesn't matter what's coming at you. All that matters is that we are on the move for his kingdom, because death has lost its grip. There's no more power in it. All right. Then we come to the Ruach Etzah, counsel, Shavuot. Okay. So what happens at Shavuot? What happened? Here we've got the center candlestick, which is known as the shamash. It is the servant candlestick. Okay. And what is this telling us? What happened at Shavuot? Several things happened at Shavuot. The first was when the people were told, get yourselves ready, cleanse yourself for 3 days. What did we just have? 3 feasts, right? Cleanse yourself for 3 days and come to the foot of the mountain. And Yah showed up in thunder and lightning to give the Torah, the 10 Devarim, the 10 commandments, so that we would know what is and what is not pleasing unto our Father, so that we would be given the loving instruction of the 10 commandments, so that we would know what it is that makes our Creator happy. It wasn't meant to be a burden. It was meant to give us a guideline, because fences are useful. They are useful to keep us safe. We're like sheep and we tend to wander away. But when we are within his fence and we know what his fence contains, well, then we can stay safe and we can be in good relationship, and we can be free of all the burdens of the enemy that tries to shame us and keep us down and tell us we're not doing it right. So this is what he came to do, was to give us the boundary lines so that we could walk in freedom and confidence, right? Throughout the earth. And then I'm going to go into some scriptures of when, we see in Passover week, the first three, but then we see at the, what we call Pentecost in the church and the descending of the Ruach upon his disciples, we see that, right? All right. So, but I'm going to go into a little bit more of that in a little bit. So then we move on. Ruach Gavura, power. All right. Now we are waiting for the fulfillment, but there is going to be, this is associated with what's called Yom Teruah that happens in the fall. These are our fall feast, right? Yom Teruah, the blowing of the trumpets. What does this signify? It is the coming of a king. Okay. This is when I expect Yahusha to return, is on a Yom Teruah. This is what I am looking for, is the coming of the king in power. All right. Ruach Da'ath, knowledge, Yom Kippur. What are we told? There are scrolls being written. Every thought, every action, every word that we speak are being written down. There's records of what we do. This is why it's so important, even when we are suffering and we are alone and we choose to say, Yah, I trust you. There are witnesses all around. You may not see them, you may not be aware of them, but I guarantee you that they are around you. And a record of your reaction in this life, in this flesh, to what's coming at you is being written. And there's only one who is worthy to open those scrolls and judge, and that is Yahusha, our King. And so I see this in the Yom Kippur account, and this is knowledge, and he's the one who has it. Okay. Then there is the Ruach Yerah Yahuwah, a fear of Yah. Okay. It is a respect. It's not a, I'm scared of you, because the only time I'm really scared, would feel like scared of Yah is if I'm out of covenant. Then there's a really good reason to be scared. But because I am in covenant with him, doing my best to keep my side of the street clean. If he brings by his Ruach knowledge that I have erred, I need to be quick to repent so that I can stay in a correct fear of Yahuwah. And that fear of Yahuwah means I don't fear the one who can kill the body. I fear the one who has power to say what my eternal destiny is going to be. This is the correct fear that I am to walk in, right? So I did want to continue now to talk today. I'm going to go into great detail over these weeks as we lead up to Shavuot. So this is just kind of an introduction on that. Today, I do want to start with the Ruach Yahuwah. And so this is an inspirational scripture to me out of Matthew 5:14 and 16. It says, "Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a menorah, and it gives light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." Now, I believe the more that I try to walk out these feasts in my life, these rehearsals, right, that I am causing that light, his light, to shine brighter and brighter in my life. And it goes out to whom he desires it to go out and minister to. And I believe that that is my responsibility. Now, I did find it interesting that in what we refer to as the Old Testament scriptures, that we see what was happening. This is interesting because judge after judge, the Ruach Yahuwah descended upon them. And so I wanted to share this with you, what was happening. And this gives a good explanation. I did this. Normally, I only share scriptures out of the Sefer, unless I feel like it's just too hard to understand with all the Hebrew, because the Sefer has the restored names. So I did go into the King James Version just for simplicity on this one. Now, these are the nations which Yahweh left to prove Israel by them, even as many of Israel as had not known the wars of Canaan, only that the generations of the children of Israel might know to teach them war, at the least such as before knew nothing thereof, namely 5 lords of the Philistines and all the Canaanites and Sidonians and the Hivites. All right. It's just trying to give us what I was trying to show you where they were. And the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites. When you understand these were nations that had massive giant infiltration, a lot of Nephilim influence in them, right? So these are heavily, they had the stuff in the high places. These are hard places to get along when you're trying to serve Yah, because it's a direct opposite, right? All right. So what happened to the children? They took their daughters to be their wives and gave their daughters to the sons and served their gods. They intermingled with these people against what Yah had told them to do. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of Yahweh and forgot Yahweh, their Elohim, and served Baalim and the groves. Therefore, the anger of Yahweh was hot against Yasharel, and he sold them into the hands of the Cush-Rash-Thaim, king of Mesopotamia. And the children of Yasharel served the Cushnarim 8 years. So this is just one example, but this is what happened over and over and over in our history, right? So then what would happen? Yah would raise up a deliverer, who the Ruach Yahweh would come upon them. You see this right here. He raised up Othniel right here, Othniel. And the Ruach Yahuwah came upon him, and he judged Yasharel, and he went out to war, and Yahweh delivered. Okay, so he delivered these people into their hands, and they won, and then they would have rest for 40 years. Now, when you understand the 40 years is always a testing period. Okay, it's always a time of a test. We're given a test. Okay, I'm giving you 40 years. Let's see what your heart's going to do now. And so what we saw was time and time again, their hearts strayed, and he had to raise up another deliverer. And so here we see it. The Ruach Yahweh came upon Gideon. The Ruach Yahweh came upon Yiptak. Okay. The Ruach Yahweh on Samson right there in Judges 13 and 14, right? And then here we even see it in David in 2 Samuel 23, 1 and 2. Now these be the last words of David. David, the son of Yeshai, said, and the man who was raised up on high, the anointed of the Elohai of Yaakov, and the sweet psalmist of Yasharel said, the Ruach Yahuwah spoke by me, and his word was in my tongue. Now, how did we get to read that word? It flowed through his pen. He said in his Psalms, my tongue is the pen of a ready writer, right? And so this is what he did. He wrote these Psalms, and that's how the Ruach spoke through him to us. Okay. Now, here I want to show it. We're going to move on into our New Testament scriptures, right? Our Brit Hadashah. Okay, so what happened and how is the Ruach in operation? How did this come about? So Yahusha has been nailed to the stake, and now he is reappearing. So as they spoke, Yahusha himself stood in the midst of them and said, peace be unto you. He just like appeared. And when I was reading, this was like his third time that he did this, but they were terrified and frightened and supposed that they had seen a Ruach. They were like, this is a ghost. How do we trust this? How do we know? Right? They were terrified. And I get it. I think that if Yahusha appeared to me in flesh and bone, I would be terrified. That would be a terrifying reaction to know that, my teacher that I had followed and that I had witnessed nailed to, the stake, and I had seen him die in great agony, and now he is alive again. I mean, it had to be just absolutely shattering, right? But they were terrified and frightened and supposed that they had seen a Ruach. He said unto them, why are you troubled? And why do your thoughts arise in your hearts? Right? our hearts move us. It's the emotional part of us. Behold my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Handle me and see, for a ruach has not flesh and bones, as you see me have. And when he had thus spoken, he showed them his hands and his feet. And while they yet believed not for joy and wondered, he said unto them, have you here any meat? So what's he saying here? They were joyful at seeing him, but having trouble wrapping their brains around it. So what does he do? He's like, okay, I'm going to prove to you that I'm here in the flesh by asking you to give me something to eat, because spirits don't eat, right? So here's what he did. So they gave him a piece of broiled fish and of a honeycomb, and he took it and he ate before them, and he said unto them, these are the words which I spoke unto you while I was yet with you, that all things must be fulfilled, which were written in the Torah of Moshe and in the prophets and then in the Tehillim concerning me. That's the Psalms. Then opened he their understanding, that they might understand the scriptures. And he said unto them, thus it is written, and thus it behooved Hamashiach to suffer, and to rise from the dead the third day, and that repentance and remission of sins should be preached in his name among all nations, beginning at Jerusalem. And ye are the witnesses of these things. And behold, I send the promise of my Father upon you, but tarry ye in the city of Jerusalem until you be endued with power from on high. He was saying, wait until the gift of my Ruach descends upon you. And we know that it did, right? We got to see that it descended upon the disciples in fire, in tongues of fire. All right. And 3,000 were saved that day. Okay. And so here we see this again. This was the promise of the Holy Spirit. Acts 1:1-5. The former treatise have I made, O Theophilus, of all that Yahusha began both to do and teach, until the day in which he was taken up. After that, he, through the Ruach HaKodesh, the holy breath, okay, had given commandments unto the apostles whom he had chosen, to whom also he showed himself alive after his passion by many infallible proofs, being seen of them 40 days, that testing period, okay, and speaking of the things pertaining to the kingdom of Elohim. And being assembled together with them, commanded them that they should not depart from Jerusalem, but wait for the promise of the Father, which he said, ye have heard of me. For Yochanan, for John, right? John the baptizer baptized you with water, but ye shall be baptized with the Ruach HaKodesh not many days hence. This was the gift of the bridegroom to his body. Okay. Here we see some more. What was accomplished here? Sorry, I'm having itchy allergies. So the Ruach of adoption, it's sonship. We've become children of Yahweh. Here we see it in Romans 8, starting in verse 12. Therefore, brethren, we are debtors, not to the flesh, to live after this flesh. For if you live after the flesh, ye shall die. But if you through the Ruach do mortify the deeds of the body, ye shall live. For as many as are led by the Ruach Elohim, they are the sons of Elohim. For ye have not received the Ruach of bondage again to fear. What was that bondage? A fear of death, a fear of eternal punishment. That's what that bondage is all about. But ye have received the Ruach Emotz. What does that mean? What is that word? That is the word for adoption. It's a Ruach of adoption, a spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. The Ruach itself bears witness with our Ruach. Ruach to Ruach, he speaks to us. This is why we can hear the voice of the shepherd. This was his gift. The Ruach itself bears witness with our Ruach that we are the children of Elohim. We are the children of Elohim. And if children, then heirs of Elohim and joint heirs with Mashiach. Wow. What a promise. What a gift. right? If so be that we suffer with him, that we may also be glorified together. I'm seeing a question here about the feast day of matzah. Now, lots of people keep lots of different calendars. For my family and our understanding, we had our Passover celebration on the evening of April the 14th. And that is when it then changed for us to be the 15th. And we began our celebration of matzah then and have kept it for 7 days. So for us, matzah will be ending at sundown tonight. Okay. So, but it just depends on the calendar, and we are all out in the land. I am really looking forward to second Passover this year because I believe that that's going to be very significant, because actually when you look scripturally, second Passover is for those who are not in the land, who are scattered into the nations, or who are unclean. And we don't have to repeat the whole week of unleavened bread, but I'm looking, second Passover ends up happening about 10 days before Shavuot. So very interesting. I will be keeping that, and I'm hoping to celebrate it with a lot of people that are going to be awakening to this truth and feel like, oh, I want to make sure that I've celebrated Passover this year, that maybe have never even really been aware of it. So first fruits was last Sunday, according to my count, and then now today is going to be the last day of unleavened bread. Okay, so the taming of the tongue. What happens in my ruach, okay, is going to come out through my tongue. This is why Yahusha warned us that be careful, what you're thinking about, because it's not what comes out of a man that makes him unclean, but it's not what goes into the man that makes him unclean, but what comes out. I really believe this is because, a lot of people worry about a reference to clean and unclean fluid with this. I don't think it had anything to do with that, because the Torah had already been very specific according to what is clean and unclean. So he wasn't trying to give us a new lesson on what's clean and unclean. He was trying to speak to us about a much deeper level. And the deeper level was what's going on in your heart concerning other people, right? Because he was making a way for all people. And he was talking about, deciding that other people were unclean, right? That was what that whole thing about the animals descending on the sheet and all that, and his whole teaching about, what is it that comes out of you that makes you unclean? Well, what comes out of us? What comes out of us, whatever I'm thinking about, whatever's ruminating around in my head and in my heart concerning, other people, and whether or not I'm choosing to get offended, and whether or not I'm choosing, to think not the best of someone else. These are the things that are ruminating. And so it ends up, if you allow that stuff to ruminate, eventually it will come out of your mouth. Or in our day, it'll come out of your fingers, because more things come out of our fingers in this day and time than end up coming out of our mouth. And it's the same as if you spoke it. If you wrote it, you spoke it. Okay. Keep that in mind. James 3. My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. What's he saying? Don't desire to be in a teaching position, right? Because you're going to have to account for every word that you counsel others with, right? For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same as a perfect man. And we know there was only one perfect man, right? Yahusha. So, for in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same as a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body. He's saying, if you know how to get your tongue and your fingers and your thoughts into submission to me, you're going to have success in bridling your whole body, right? This is what he was trying to tell us. Behold, we put bits in the horses' mouths that they may obey us, and we turn their whole body by pulling on the reins, right? Behold also the ships, although they be so great, are driven by fierce winds, yet they are turned about with a very small helm, the rudder. That's what turns them, right? It determines which direction. No matter how hard the wind is blowing, that rudder determines it. Okay, whithersoever the governor wills. Who is it? Whoever's in charge of that rudder is going to determine the direction of that ship. Even so, the tongue is a little member, and it boasts great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire can kindle. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defiles the whole body and sets on fire the course of nature. And it is set on fire of Gehenna, right? The depths, the ugly places, right? Hell. For every kind of beast and of bird and of serpents and of things in the sea is tamed and has been tamed of mankind, but the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Wow. Therefore, bless we Elohim, even the Father, and therewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude of Elohim. Out of the same mouth proceeds blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. Does a fountain send forth at the same place sweet water and bitter? Can the fig tree, my brethren, bear olive berries? Either a grapevine, can it bear figs? So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh. Okay, I want to talk just a little bit. I've got just a little bit of time. So let me forward my notes here. The other day, I teach a pictographic Hebrew class, and my last letter was Tet. And it was very surprising to me how much I saw that we need discernment, that the letter Tet gives us a sense of discernment. It's like a warning, of what's in your basket, which could be an earthen vessel. I can't go into the whole lesson, but it was a real wake-up call and discernment. And then this past Tuesday, if you guys watched my show with Dr. Pigeon, Living Through Interesting Times, we got to the last half hour of the show, and I was talking to him about our experience at Passover, that our group, the weather and what we'd been through, and the baptisms and the amazing hand of Yah being upon us. And I was talking about that, and he started relating to me a story about a friend of his that had a battle with a brain tumor and had a real awakening with Yah. And he shared a song with us, about how Yah is with us in the middle of the storm by casting crowns. It was beautiful, and it was a beautiful story. But the one thing that it really got my attention, as Dr. Pigeon said, he went to see his friend. He'd had such victory for 18 months, and the tumor came back, and it was not operable at that point. And he went to his friend and he said, "How are you doing?" And his friend said, "I'm scared to speak one wrong word." We are living in a time when, like no other, things are rapidly coming to a culmination point, and we are going to be held responsible. And I have to say, I see certain people, I've experienced this in my own life. There's someone in my life that I'm involved with that really has done something to hurt me greatly. And through a type message, it was accusatory, and it was ugly, and it was divisive. And I tried to let that person know this person hurt me and one other person. And I tried to let her know, listen, this is very divisive, and it's not a good time for that. And I say this now to say, I hope that if this person is listening, or if this resonates with you and you have done something that you shouldn't have, you've spoken words that you shouldn't, now is the time to set things right, because you don't want that scroll opened by Yahusha and him to have to read out, right? Because it's not my job to call anybody out. It's not my job to set anybody straight. I want to keep things straight with people. I want there to be smooth sailing. And I try my best to just assume the best of people. But I do know when a wrong spirit has come at me, and I have to call it out when I see it. And when I see divisiveness, I'll call it out, but I do it privately. And then if there's no response, I'm trying to give a warning and say, it's time to set it straight. It's very important to set it straight, because we don't want to have to set these things straight when it's too late to set them straight. None of us knows. We're in such precarious times at the moment that none of us knows what could be in store. You know, what we could experience. You know, what I was relating not long ago when I talked with Dr. Pidgeon last Tuesday was sharing our Passover experience. You know, the night before Passover, here we are in tents, and we knew we were supposed to be there, right? And tornadoes hit all around, and there were 8 of us there for the appointed Moedim to do our best to join together with brothers and sisters and have baptism service and make sure that our hearts were right, and to celebrate the Pesach and make sure that we were entering into unleavened bread clean as we knew how to be. And yet we were in grave danger all around us. Now Yah's hand was upon us, but in the things in the nations, there's not a person within sound of my voice that we are not in a precarious situation right now. That's just the time period that we are living through. It is precarious. And so this is not the time to promote our own ministries. It's not the time to try to build our own kingdom on this earth. It's the time to be a servant. It's the time to say, he must increase and I must decrease, and to never try to grab glory for ourselves. And there's a lot of people right now, and they sound really good, but there are things that are going on in their private lives, things that they're doing and saying to hurt others. And it's not right. And what I'm saying is, nothing is hidden from Yah. Yah knows all, he sees all, and we are going to be held accountable for our actions. It is time to set things straight. Time to set things straight in our life. Wow, I see there are lots of different comments. You know, I really thank you guys for being here today. I'm looking at some. Wow, he does. I'm just going to kind of go back and read some of the comments for a little bit. Here's Tabari saying shalom. And my friend Lee, who was with me camping, her and her husband, you know, the tornado came closer to Lee and James' tent than it did to mine and Robert's, because I got up the next morning and saw the evidence, and they had such a testimony. They got out their scriptures and they were just reading the word right into the face of the storm. I mean, it was such a great thing the next day to be able to see that. My friend Laura Lee, who has her own show on Hebrew Nation Radio, The Samaritan Woman, I believe is the right name. A lovely show. And I've been a guest of hers, and that'll be airing sometime soon. She'll let us know when it is. So thank you for being here today, Laura Lee. I really appreciate it. And I hope people will go and listen to your radio show, because it's a wonderful show. I've listened to lots of episodes, and they are just encouraging and a great blessing to the body during this day. Yeah, and I see a comment here. He knows our hearts. We yearn for our real home, our permanent home. I'm like a gypsy here, always needing to travel. I've always kind of felt like a bit of a gypsy myself. You look at the tribe of Gad, and that term gadabout comes from that tribe, because their symbol, even on their banner in the wilderness, was a tent, because they traveled a lot. So I really relate to that. Yeah, we do have to do our best to handle our stressful situations. And, we're all going to fail. I fail repeatedly. But, what's interesting about my journey, and Laura Lee and I've talked about this a bit, about my journey coming out of a life of trauma and addictions and that stuff all my life, is when I would fail, I used to live underneath such a shroud of shame that I would run from failure. I would run from Messiah. I didn't want to face Messiah with that. And I have grown in that relationship so much to where now that shame just does not have power over me like it used to. He has truly set me free from that. The more that I run to him, the more that I am set free from that. And to know the instant washing away of my sin, is such a wonderful and blessed thing to be able to experience that. And I'm so grateful for that, that I don't have to live in shame anymore. All right. Well, I thank you guys for being here with me today. I'm going to share a psalm that I use when I need to repent because something is wrong. There's no better one than this one, and it is Psalm 51. And so I'll just close with this one. This is David's after he's, sinned with Bathsheba and has lost his child, and he knows he needs to make things right between him and Yah. It says, "Have mercy upon me, O Elohim, according to your loving kindness, according unto the multitude of your tender mercies. Blot out my transgressions, wash me thoroughly from my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against you, you only have I sinned and done this evil in your sight, that you might be justified when you speak and be clear when you judge. Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. Behold, you desire truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part you shall make me to know wisdom." Wow. That's all I have time to read today. I encourage you to go back and review these and read all of that. And I hope this has been a blessing to you. You guys have been a blessing to me. Hi, Ren. Good to see you. Right. Thank you, Laura. We do have times when we're in the wrong and when others are in the wrong. It's just part of living. And thank you. Healing for the Nation with a modern day Samaritan woman on Hebrew Nation Radio. Thank you, Laura Lee. Go and listen to her broadcast. You guys will love them. All right. Well, it's time for me to end for the day. I thank you for being with me, and I hope you'll come back and join me next week as we continue to look at the 7 ruachs that are in Isaiah 11 and how they relate to our life today. Bye-bye for now.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
I've been asleep, head in the sand, watching the time just ticking. Clock runs around, days in and out, can't really call it living. Somewhere I let light go dark, but here's where my new story starts.